Hello and welcome to my patron exclusive look at one of my absolute favorite YouTube channels, Tamers12345. You might recall from my Q&A video last month that I specifically stated that I don't want to make a video on Tamers because I don't want to direct too much unwanted attention his way. Well, somehow it took me explaining that in a patron exclusive Q&A video for me to realize that I could just make a little patron exclusive Tamers video and that would completely solve the problem. I mean, personally, I don't care if you want to make a Tamers video or whatever. I'm not saying no one is allowed to talk about him. On the contrary, I find it to be quite entertaining, hence this video. I just don't want to be responsible for making a video that gets a lot of views, which directly results in his comment section being flooded with dumb comments, or possibly an even worse outcome. I'll explain more why I'm hesitant to give Tamers too much exposure in a bit. Now, this isn't going to be an exhaustive deep dive where I summarize the plot of every episode like I'm the nostalgia critic. I'm just going to try and basically explain what the channel is and why I like it, which is honestly easier said than done. So I guess to begin, let me give you a very condensed summary of what Sonic Underground even is in the first place. It was the third Sonic TV show produced by Deke in the 90s. Although aesthetically it shares some similarities in staff with the previous show known as Sat AM, it takes place in an entirely new setting where Sonic is born with a brother known as Manic and a sister known as Sonia. And with their mother, Queen Aleena, they make up the royal family. However, when Sonic and his siblings were still infants, Dr. Robotnik took over the planet Mobius, and after being told of a prophecy, Queen Aleena has to go into hiding, giving up her children to 3 different families to keep them safe. The show follows the Hedgehog siblings after growing up and reuniting as they battle against Dr. Robotnik and attempt to track down their mother. Oh, also they have magical musical medallions that transform into instruments, and at least once per episode there's a full musical number. It ran for one 40-episode season and unfortunately ended without any kind of resolution of the plot. In general, the show was not particularly well received. Sat AM continues to have a dedicated fan base, and even Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog had a resurgence in popularity, partially thanks to YouTube poops and his Long John Baldry's godlike performance of Robotnik. On the other hand, Sonic Underground doesn't really seem to have the biggest fandom, at least from what I can tell. The show mostly seems to be known nowadays for its relatively poor animation quality, at least compared to the other Sonic shows, and its bizarre premise. Some random episodes, like the one with the robot baby, have been pretty heavily memed on because of hilarious scenes, but I honestly don't see much unironic praise for this series, mostly just people memeing on it. However, the show does have at least one truly dedicated fan, a man known as Tamers12345. I guess he just happened to see it during his formative years as a kid, and he really took a liking to it. So much so that he basically made it his life's work to continue the series. He has a YouTube channel where he creates animations to continue the story of Sonic Underground. Although the art style and animation is limited, he still manages to produce new episodes on a fairly regular basis, often ranging from 20 to 30 minutes each, with some shorter miscellaneous videos uploaded between them and some longer ones. He's been uploading pretty consistently for about 10 years now, although the style of his content has changed a bit over time. Here's something very interesting about Tamers. He's a massive fan of Sonic Underground, but he has absolutely zero interest in anything else related to Sonic. He shows complete disdain for modern Sonic, and he doesn't care about the games at all. He says he has no interest in the other Deke cartoons because they aren't as good as Sonic Underground. I believe Tamers actually started his artistic journey on DeviantArt. Unfortunately, he was banned from the site ages ago. There's not much left to chronicle of this part of Tamers' history besides a few screenshots. Here's a classic Tamers moment. He's commenting on this piece of art by another creator.
No offense, but this doesn't look that good. In some ways, a lot of ways actually. I can see you rushed through it, and that's something one should never do. At least that's what I wouldn't do. But I guess some people just like to rush through things, and expect to get praise for it. But I'm sorry, that's just not right. Please actually try next time. Or just leave it to the professionals like myself. I think it'd be best if you try not to spam useless art that you obviously show no care for all over DeviantArt. Just goes to show anything slutty can go on the front page, even if it sucks.
Just for reference, this is what his art looked like at the time. Just one example of Tamers being based as fuck. It's also hard to keep track of this era because after getting banned, he would just constantly be registering new accounts with new usernames, but those would eventually get banned too. After getting tired of this game of account whack-a-mole, he eventually just gave up and made YouTube his primary hub of content. He started with just fan art, and then some Sonic Underground AMVs and other short videos. Eventually he moved to making original stories using clips from Sonic Underground with text-to-speech voices before finally animating his own episodes using MS Paint drawings. I understand that it can be kinda hard to get into Tamers, even beyond just the initial what the fuck is this factor. It can just be a little confusing trying to start at the most recent episodes and work your way backwards, even though his newest stuff is his best work yet. But it's also a little confusing trying to start at the oldest videos first, as there's a lot of AMVs and other unnecessary random videos you don't really need to watch before you get to the actual show. Luckily, if you just search Tamers12345 playlist, you can easily find several playlists that have most of the main episodes listed chronologically. This is how I got into Tamers myself, through one of these playlists. I'll have a link to one of them in the description if you're curious. If you're trying to get into Tamers, there's nothing wrong with just binging the main episodes of the series, but there are a lot of great random videos between these episodes, often live action starring Tamers in his amazing cardboard Bartleby outfit. These range from showing off his impressive collection of very rare official Sonic Underground merch to just random shit like food reviews. These videos are where you can gain a lot of insight into Tamers as a person. And he has a very, I don't know how to say, interesting cadence and way of speaking that I've come to really enjoy.
Sup everyone, Tamers12345 here with a very special video today. Now we got a treat. My mama, earlier today, she went to a Taco Bell and shit, and she got the almighty, the legendary, something that might give me explosive diarrhea, the Doritos Locos Tacos. I got it. Yeah, you don't, but I do, bitch!
So while this is ostensibly a continuation of Sonic Underground, it's actually very different in tone, feeling closer to a sitcom. Sonic and his siblings have been reunited with their mother and now live on Earth like a normal family, and most of their adventures are just domestic situations like celebrating 4th of July and other holidays, Sonic and his sibs being at school, and just being poor in general. Actually, being poor is kind of a heavily recurring theme you'll see throughout the series. But the point is, the characters are so different that they're basically Tamers' original creations at this point. And the series is so far removed from the original show that it's not really necessary to watch before seeing Tamers' version, although he'd fucking kill me if he heard me saying that. I mean, it's not like there'd be no value in watching it, as a lot of random side characters from the TV series end up showing up in Tamers' version, and sometimes it will randomly call back to highly specific events from the original series. Again, you can tell Tamers really loved Sonic Underground and must have left a huge impression on him as a kid as he watched it over and over again. That said, it's not entirely unlike Tails Gets Trolled in the sense that he will draw from a wide pool of pop culture characters to include. It's not just Sonic Underground characters, and some of the choices are incredibly strange and esoteric, which is fun. Just seeing who's gonna show up next, you know, and how they'll be portrayed in the Tamers verse. Like Light Yagami just showed up in the latest episode, and that was a treat. But the biggest example of characterization differing between the original show and Tamers' version is easily the character of Sir Bartleby Montclair of Dresden. A relatively minor recurring character in the original show, he's a pompous effete aristocrat who was originally engaged to Sonia. If you've seen Sat AM, he's basically the Antoine of the show. But in Tamers' version, Bartleby is the strongest, richest, sexiest man in the universe and the lover of Sonic the Hedgehog. In fact, most of Tamers' version of Sonic Underground is focused on their relationship, to the point where even the in-universe characters comment on the Bardonic ship as it's known. Like I said earlier, a recurring theme throughout the show is how poor Sonic's family is, which is heavily contrasted by the absolute absurd wealth of Bartleby. He's not just really rich, he's rich beyond the point of reason, like he wipes his ass with $50 million bills. In one episode, he buys an airport worth $480,900,083, and to go along with that, he also has a collection of 16,000 jets, each costing $8 trillion. Bartleby isn't just your average ordinary Mary Sue. He goes so far beyond just being a Mary Sue. He's like a one-punch man, only in every single possible way, not just strength. One of my absolute favorite scenes is when Bartleby throws a rope around a helicopter, and it looks like he's so strong that he's dragging the helicopter down. But then it's revealed that he's actually so strong that he's not pulling the helicopter down, he's pulling the entire Earth up. But then it's actually revealed that he's not pulling the Earth up, he's so strong that he's pulling the entire known galaxy down, the effects of which can be felt 500,000 light years away. He actually ends up pulling the sun down into the helicopter. It's so fucking awesome. Despite being a nigh invincible genius and inhumanly smart and strong, he does face some interpersonal drama. Particularly, Bartleby is known for having a fraught relationship with his father who pays him little to no attention. In fact, in a flashback episode, it's revealed Bartleby wasn't allowed to graduate kindergarten because his father wouldn't sign a permission slip, meaning he wasn't able to receive his diploma. Saddened and enraged by this, child Bartleby ended up shooting up the school and taking one of the other students' diplomas, and this is presented as a good thing. Again, everything Bartleby does is presented as a good thing. He's essentially canonically infallible. You'd think having a nigh omnipotent character would make generating conflict difficult in the series. Indeed, many of Sonic's problems could be solved by his hyper-rich and capable boyfriend, yet Bartleby often simply chooses not to help because he doesn't feel like it. That said, as ridiculously, just impossibly strong and powerful as Bartleby is, there is still one character who surpasses him in terms of power level, and that would be Tamers12345 himself. Yes, Tamers occasionally shows up in his show wearing his cardboard Bartleby costume, and everyone in universe seems to recognize and love Tamers. But unlike in Sonichu, he does not overly insert himself into the series or usurp the role of main character or anything like that. It's actually pretty rare and only happens occasionally, which makes it very exciting. So one of the first things you'll notice about Tamers' Sonic Underground is that it's very sexual. I mean, this is made pretty obvious from the gigantic asses and how often people's clothes are torn off, Bartleby's in particular. Tamers definitely seems to have a fixation on giant asses as they're featured prominently in basically every single episode and are frequently commented on by the characters. Sonic's main characteristic in this show is his gigantic ass. His super speed is rarely mentioned or utilized. There's plenty of other weird fetishistic stuff in the show, most of which I personally find hilarious, although your mileage may vary on this one. There's a fair bit of scatological and otherwise juvenile humor, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like a completely pretentious prick, but in general, this type of basic humor doesn't usually do it for me. But there's something about how over-the-top and weird it is in Tamers' videos that just cracks me the fuck up and it loops back around to being hysterical again. The style of humor is honestly kind of hard to explain, but this what I watched, what I expected, what I got image macro I found on 4chan actually does kind of get at the heart of it. The comparison to It's Always Sunny is weirdly apt, as almost all the characters are assholes to each other, and it's hilarious. I also truly love how bizarre it can get. You never know what to expect when watching. Sometimes the craziest shit happens, or situations will just rapidly escalate. I don't want to paint the wrong picture and make it seem like it's just lull random humor. A lot of it really is character-based, but it still feels like you never know what's going to happen next. While it is mostly a comedy-focused slice-of-life series, eventually lore starts building up in these videos, like multiple concurrent arcs spanning several years in real life on a slow burn, which eventually converge, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it culminates in an incredible full-length movie, Battle with the Boys. I don't want to oversell it, the show is mostly comedic, but the inclusion of some long-running dramatic storylines is pretty fun too. You can tell just sometimes it wants to randomly be a shonen for a little bit, which is great. Now obviously it has a very simple style. I'm pretty sure these are mostly animated frame by frame and constructed entirely in MS Paint. There are some random moments where the animation will be surprisingly good, which is always a treat. Again, I know this is a bit of a rehash of my rant and the Tails Gets Trolled video, but after a while the style grew on me and I just began to find the limited animation makes it even funnier. It's charming. I mean, sometimes things are funnier when shit is wildly off model. I'm not gonna pretend it's objectively good, whatever that means, but I've come to really deeply appreciate his unique way of drawing characters. There's something just hilarious about his art style. The absurdly gigantic asses which are somehow always visible on his character designs are just incredible. You can tell he's always enjoying the process. Another aspect that fascinates me about Tamers12345 is the mystery of it all. That might sound kind of silly, and it is, but it's actually impressive that to this day he has never once shown his face on camera. He's actually done a surprisingly good job of keeping his real-life identity secret. Personal information about him is very sparse. We don't know his name or where he lives beyond the fact it's in the United States somewhere. And again, there's nothing inherently unusual about this. Plenty of internet people keep their identity secret. It's just kind of impressive he's managed to keep it up for this long. Judging from his personality seen in his live-action videos, it doesn't really seem like he'd be the type to care so much about maintaining his privacy, and nonetheless he's continued to do so. I think one reason people have become so curious about the man behind the mask is that dedicated fans of his have found bits and pieces of evidence which seem to suggest that the Tamers12345 channel is actually worked on by at least 2 people. This is known in the community as the multiple Tamers theory, and let me break down the main tenets of this argument. The first piece of circumstantial evidence to consider is the frequency and regularity in which Tamers produces content. He's regularly been putting out 20 to 40 minute animations on a bi-weekly, sometimes weekly basis for quite a long time now. The relative simplicity of the art style is somewhat counterbalanced by the surprisingly slow process of manually creating the animation frame by frame in MS Paint, with many of these videos requiring thousands of unique frames to be created and then animated with all the voices lined up. The fact the series uses text-to-speech fits in well with this notion of dividing the labor up. Now, of course, the mere fact that Tamers updates frequently is not proof of anything on its own. What really tipped people off is the fact that if you pay close attention to Tamers videos, there are actually two similar but slightly different art styles on display. It's more difficult to notice with the characters with more simple designs comprised of basic shapes like Sonic and some of the other main cast members, but it becomes more apparent in the characters with more detailed designs. Two characters in particular stand out, the first of which is Sonia. Artist 1 always draws Sonia with magenta fur and pink hair, just like her design in the original show, whereas Artist 2 will draw her with a solid shade of pink. The other character who has a noticeably different design is Sleet. Artist 1 typically draws him with a more detailed muzzle and bangs that come out over his eyes, whereas Artist 2 typically draws a more simple muzzle with hair that goes straight up. There's no set schedule, but it's not uncommon to see the styles alternate, like Artist 1 will do one video, then Artist 2 does the art for the next video, etc. However, sometimes, particularly in longer projects, they'll both work on it. For example, in the High School Musical video, there's a noticeable cut between the two art styles in the middle. The difference between them is pretty subtle, but it's easy to spot once you notice it. The main difference between their styles is seen in how large they draw the pupils. The third and final piece of evidence actually comes from the live-action videos. Almost all of Tamers' videos are made by himself, either with him just pointing the camera at something and talking, or the camera sitting stationary on a tripod or something while he records himself. However, on a few occasions, there has been a cameraman actively holding the camera. Tamers has stated it's his mom holding the camera, and he has referred to the cameraman as his mother in a few videos. While this is certainly possible, it's simply worth noting we have never once seen or even heard a single word from his mother in any of the videos. There is also one live-action video, which is actually a lore video part of the Obama arc, in which Tamers and another individual of a similar build are seen together on camera fighting in costumes. Again, I'm aware a lot of this evidence is purely circumstantial and doesn't prove anything by itself. However, with all this together, I feel like it seems like the Tamers12345 channel is run by two guys, possibly brothers, but that's just speculation. However, if this is true, why would Tamers feel the need to keep it a secret all this time? It's also possible it started as one guy who may have recruited his brother or a friend later on to help out. There's really no way to know for sure, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really change anything. I just find it interesting they'd even go to the trouble of keeping it a secret in the first place, and I don't really feel like bothering him about it and asking about it directly. It's not like I'm entitled to an answer or anything like that. There are lots of other random pieces of Tamers lore that I barely know how to tie into all this, like the fact that one day he announced he made an entire RPG Maker game called The Prophecy of Light and Darkness, The Power to Save the World. It's $10 to download, but Justin Wang actually streamed a playthrough of it on YouTube. While ostensibly about original characters in a fantasy world, it immediately becomes apparent that the characters are just thinly disguised versions of their Sonic Underground counterparts. Okay, so let me briefly discuss why I made this video patron exclusive and why I don't want Tamers to blow up in popularity too much, because there are actually a couple reasons. First off, and I have stated this publicly before, is that I just don't want to make a big public video out of Tamers out of respect to him. Like, no matter how reverent I am towards him or Sonic Underground, there's still a chance he would see it, and he would probably be not too pleased with some of my takes on Sonic Underground in his show, and I really just personally do not want to piss him off or make him upset. He's taken a hardline stance against haters, and I do not want to be labeled as one of them. No matter how nice I am, I feel like just attempting to accurately describe the series could easily be misconstrued as me making fun of him or something. Secondly, if I were to make a big video on Tamers, it would inevitably result in a ton of people flooding his comment section with dumbass comments. Now, something I actually really like about Tamers is he takes the time to reply to a lot of comments. Usually on basically any video you can find him taking the time to reply to a few comments, and his YouTube responses are usually hysterical. Sometimes he gets very defensive and will write paragraph-long replies insulting the commenter. I feel like if he gets a huge flood of dumbass comments, not only would this be guaranteed to piss him off, which I don't want to do, but he might even close the comment sections. And my final and most practical reason for not wanting to draw too much attention to Tamers is I don't want to see him get fucking cancelled or banned or anything stupid like that. This may seem like a bit of an overreaction for me, but I assure you it's not. Let me be very clear about this. Tamers videos sometimes include offensive material. If you are offended by the F slur or R slur, then you're probably going to want to give his content a pass because those words are dropped pretty frequently. And there is even very occasionally some racial content that might be considered stereotypical or otherwise offensive to some people. Let me just personally state that Tamers content is in no way hateful. Tamers is not evil or racist or anything like that, but some of the jokes are perhaps a bit edgy for today's standards. It's definitely pretty offensive at times, but he's never advocating for anything cruel or evil. And in fact, as you may have imagined, it's a weirdly wholesome and pro-LGBT story at times.
Well, if nobody else is going to bring this up, I guess I'll just be the one to ask. Are you two like faggots or what? What the hell, Sleet? You can't just ask people if they're gay? What's wrong with asking? I'm genuinely curious. These two were literally having butt sex behind the couch when we walked in. Don't act like you didn't see that shit.
It's all right, Robotnik. I'll take it from here. I deal with these kinds of people all the time. To answer your question, Sleet, yes, me and Bartleby are in a homosexual relationship. We've been together for years now, and we love each other very much.
Is there a problem? Because if so, I could take you out back and have my fists fix it for you.
Oh, no, I was just curious, that's all. I actually think you two make a pretty cute couple.
I'm just afraid a bunch of dorks might take it the wrong way and mass flag him or get him banned or something like that. And if that happened as a direct result of my video, I would be so fucking upset. In fact, he was just recently banned on Twitter, which is a fucking tragedy, and I think there aren't even any archives of his account, so a lot of great posts have been lost forever. I haven't seen any official confirmation, but I think he got banned on Twitter because he sent a message to Sonic's voice actor, Jaleel White, saying he'd love to see him have sex with Bartleby's voice actor. Honestly, someone should get on archiving his YouTube comments too, just in case his channel does go down. I'm confident that many people, myself included, could cobble together a backup of his videos. In fact, a lot of them have already been mirrored to archive.org, but those comments need to be preserved. So I guess the big question everyone always asks, it always comes down to this: is he serious, or is this just a joke? I've seen people defend both positions. Some adamantly insist he is just joking and playing it up. This is all just a meme. He's completely self-aware of how ridiculous the situation is. And others insist that he is just completely, absolutely, 100% genuine. He is exactly as he presents himself, etc., etc. I'm going to be honest here. Even after all this, after everything I've seen, I don't know. I cannot definitively tell you the answer to this question one way or the other. I think it's a bit of a mixture of both, leaning heavily towards the real side of the equation. Like, if he is completely fake, then it's impressive that for a 10-year span he's never once slipped up or broken kayfabe in any way to my knowledge. It's hard to believe that he could have kept at it for this long, delivering such regular updates, creating this many animations, if he didn't really genuinely love Sonic Underground and view it as his life's work to continue it. But he is also just actually a genuinely funny guy, and he clearly has fun with it, and he clearly knows that it's silly to some degree, but just doesn't care. He just enjoys making the videos. He was doing it for a long time to virtually no audience, and now he's amassed a pretty decently sized and loyal fan base, myself included. I really love seeing all the fan art and other fan works produced for Tamers. I truly wish him the best, and I hope his Patreon continues to grow and rapidly outpace his mine. I hope I've done a somewhat adequate job in explaining the appeal of Tamers, even though, again, I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Maybe you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about and this just looks completely insane to you. Maybe you even tried to watch it, and after an earnest attempt you just couldn't get into it or find it amusing, and that's fine too, honestly. It is definitely not a series for everyone. I feel like you might have to have a specific kind of sensibility to enjoy it, and I feel like an entire lifetime of appreciating weird Sonic shit has left me primed to enjoy this series a bit more than your average Joe would. But this is really one of those quintessential, haha, let's watch this thing to laugh at how cringe it is moments that ended in me unironically just laughing my ass off and loving this totally unique little series he's created. Look, we all have those creators on YouTube where it's like a huge event for us every time they upload and we'll drop what we're doing to watch it. Well, Tamers is one of those creators for me. In today's increasingly corporatized and homogenous YouTube landscape, it's nice to take a moment to appreciate someone who legitimately is only making the exact kind of videos they want to make, with absolutely zero compromises. Tamers legitimately doesn't give a fuck about what you or anyone else thinks about his videos. I feel like he'd be doing this shit whether anyone was watching him or not, and that's pretty cool. Here's one final treat from me to you. For ages I was curious about which specific text-to-speech program it uses to generate the characters' voices. I looked and asked around for it for ages, but I never got any results. Well, after enough time in Tamers threads on 4chan, someone was kind enough to post a link to the site he uses along with which character names correspond to each voice, so I will now gladly pass along this information to you. Use it responsibly.